Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, May the 4th, 2023. Today, I want to talk a bit about protest. Protest. It does seem to me, being in America, that when people protest, they're often protesting about a narrow interest. It's like what people do in America is that they decide that they're going to get involved in this thing, and that's their specialization. That's a thing they're going to protest about. It's often very personal. I don't think there's any grand global sense of protest here. Certainly not like it was, say, 50 or 60 years ago. People don't protest here about nuclear war, nuclear arms, that kind of thing. When I was, when I was in my early 20s, I would go on CND marches. I was really terrified of nuclear war. I felt I had to protest about it. Everyone did. When something happened on the other side of the world, I'd be quite happy to, go to the American embassy and scream and shout about it. So that was then. But now, people don't seem to be quite so concerned about it. What happens on the other side of the world perhaps doesn't bother them. Or worse still, they just follow the government line. I mean, look at Ukraine. It seems everyone in the West is 100% behind NATO's proxy war against the Ukraine, against Russia. There's no sense of possibility that maybe they got it wrong. I'm reminded of, say, the Falklands War. I remember the Falklands War when Argentina invaded the British territory in Falkland Islands. Argentina was essentially a fascist government. Yet in England, I was at university at the time, and people took a balanced view. There were professors where I was who were saying, well, maybe the Argentinians have got a point legally in terms of the Falklands War. No one, if you wanted to support Argentina, or say how wonderful Argentina was where I was, no one would have got too upset. But now things are a lot more polarized, and people are a lot more prepared to just follow the government line. In the UK and the United States, just if the British government, the American government thinks it's okay to send billions to keep the proxy war against the Ukraine going, that's fine. But a generation ago, people were more questioning, I think. And perhaps one is reminded that today is the 53rd anniversary of the shooting at Kent State University, where there were protests about the United States under Nixon expanding its involvement, bombing Cambodia, moving stuff into Cambodia. I don't quite know the details, but students in Ohio got sufficiently upset about it that they would start to protest, and the National Guard came in, and four of them got killed. So that sounds kind of, that sounds completely weird. You just kind of can't quite imagine students now going to those levels. Plus nowadays, people, we support, Americans, British support the continuation of a war in Ukraine. The tens, hundreds, thousands of people, Russians and Ukrainians that are dying. That's fine. I don't think, they wouldn't, when Nixon was wanting to expand the thing into Cambodia, if it had been now, it would have said, oh, great, Nixon, carry on. But then it was different. So what I want to do, at least how I want to start, is I want to look at the chart of the Kent State shooting. And I'm not saying that this chart tells us anything useful. It's not really a very impressive chart. So let's look at this chart. I'll tell you more about this thing up here later. So it doesn't strike me as being particularly special. I've included all of the hypothetical planets in here, but still it doesn't make sense. I'll make much sense. There's Saturn. There's a Sun-Saturn conjunction in this chart. Okay, Sun-Saturn conjunctions aren't great, but maybe it's doing something. That Sun-Saturn conjunction is square the ascendant at 12:24. And this is when the Ohio National Guard started shooting at that time, 12:24 p.m. in the afternoon. I believe it started when a sergeant, there you can see, born in 1928, Sergeant Myron Pryor. I think that's him. I can't be too many Myron Pryors in America. And when he started shooting with his Colt 45, and that was the signal for other National Guardsmen to carry on. They just joined the frenzy, and 4 students were killed. So if we look at this, chart, Saturn is square the ascendant. Yeah, that's not great. But is that enough to really symbolize a shooting? I don't really think so. If you look at hypothetical planets, the situation is a bit better. Now, there is the hypothetical planet Vulcan and Vulcanus, and it's 45 degrees from the planet Hades. And Vulcan is often about the massive power of the state. The Vulcan is a blacksmith of the gods. You think of that hammer smashing protest, and it's 45 degrees from Hades, one of the planets of death, often associated with graveyards. So I think we've got some resonance there. And if we look at Mars, we notice that Mars is at the time was, I believe, on the Vulcan and on the Hades Vulcan midpoint. So if we look at midpoints, there it is, Mars on the Hades Vulcan midpoint. So Mars here is the planet of aggression. It's on the Hades Vulcan midpoint, and Hades and Vulcan were in semi-square aspect. So I think that possibly is important. And indeed, in the whole chart, I think Mars on the Hades Vulcan midpoint is the thing that best sums up what's going on. So I'm going to quickly look at what the Hamburg School would say about Mars on the Hades Vulcan midpoint. This book is great. I would recommend it. Alfred Vitter's Rules for Planetary Pictures. If you look on the internet, you'll be able to find it. I think it's somewhere in Florida that sells it if you're in America. Mars on the Hades Vulcan midpoint. So what does it say? Unjust and unfair treatment, to be exposed to viciousness, meanness and hostility on account of an activity, great destruction, mighty acts of war, rebelling against oppression. And so, in fact, I think that Mars on the Hades Vulcan midpoint really kind of sums up what was going on. Still, I do understand 2020 hindsight and all that, but if you are into astrology, I really strongly recommend that you start using the hypothetical planets of the Hamburg School. They do take a bit of getting used to, and you might wonder how they can possibly work, but just try it, see what happens. But maybe when we look at this chart, maybe it's just a shooting. We have so many shootings in America. Maybe this is just another shooting. And perhaps the culprit, the person we should look to for responsibility, is Myron Pryor. I mean, he started it. He was the one, apparently, who started shooting his Colt 45, and the others joined in. So maybe we should look at one bad apple whose actions caused this destruction, encouraged other people to do what they did. So let's look at Mara and Pra's chart. I'll remove the hypothetical planets because I don't think we don't really need them. One moment. So Mara and Pra, he is a Leo. He died in 2002, as you can see. Now, I'm 99% sure that I've got his birth date wrong. Sorry, I've got his birth date right. But there's always a possibility that there is another Mara and Pra. This one was also associated with Ohio. So I'm fairly confident that this is Mara and Pra's birth date. And he wasn't born, I don't think, in Kent, Ohio. But because I don't have his date, his time of birth, it doesn't really matter where I set it for. So in terms of Mara and Pra's chart, he's a major Leo. Mercury, Sun, Venus. He really has a high opinion of himself. He thinks he's wonderful, perhaps. And so he sees all these students and others causing trouble, and it just grates with his Leo, with who he is as a Leo. He probably has a certain sense of outrage. And notice he's got Jupiter, Moon, and Mars in Taurus. This suggests someone who is, very set in his ways, very conservative, perhaps. He sees the world in a particular way. And when he sees, the whole protest movement of the 60s, I know this is 1970, he just doesn't like it. It's not the way he sees the world. And the protest he's dealing with at Kent State, he just can't handle it, and he responds in the way he thinks fit. So how does he respond? So look at his Mars. Mars is a planet of aggression, and his Mars is square Neptune. Now, I often see Mars-Neptune squares, hard aspects, as being about sleaze, because Neptune is about the underbelly of life, drink, alcohol, drugs, prostitution, all of that. Mars square Neptune, that makes sense. But there's another simpler way of looking at it. Neptune is about confusion. This is someone, Mars square Neptune, who doesn't really know how to fully express his assertion, as a soldier, or at least as a member of National Guard. I don't know whether it was a full-time, I don't know how the National Guard works. But this Neptune clearly confused him. And that's something he's got in his horoscope. Another thing about his horoscope is, look at that Uranus. It's at 7 Aries. Now let's just put the hypothetical planets back. You'll see he's got an exact Hades-Uranus conjunction in his chart. Now this would have been around in the late 20s, but Uranus is massive force, guns, explosions, whatever, and it's conjunct Hades. Hades is about death and graveyards and, as I've said, that kind of thing. So that would further exacerbate his capacity to cause mass destruction. So what I want to do now is I want to set up a bi-wheel. Now inside, this is, if you look at this chart, this is Mara and Pra's horoscope in the inner wheel. On the outer wheel, we've got the position of the planets at the time of the Kent State shooting. And look at Neptune. Neptune is at 2958 Scorpio. In other words, it's exactly opposition Mara and Pra's Mars in Mars, which is at 2942 Taurus. So it was kind of picking up on his capacity to get utterly confused, not know what he's doing. He's got his Colt 45, he shoots at these students, and that's it. So I think the key aspect there was Neptune on Mara and Pra, making an opposition to Mara and Pra's Mars. And I think that may be what did it. So when we look at this Kent State shooting, perhaps we shouldn't just see it as a political event, as something that caused a major fracture in American society. We should just see it as another shooting, another Another American who has a gun, who doesn't know how to use it, who doesn't have any discipline, who just kills some people. And okay, he may not have personally killed those people, but his action, his hasty behavior, triggered by Neptune on his Mars, caused his fellow National Guardsmen to do what they did. Anyway, that's my opinion. Hope you find it useful. And we will now look at today's stars for Thursday, May the 4th, 2023. The moon is moving into Scorpio. It happens every month, so it's not a big deal. But as usual, when the moon is in Scorpio, we can expect unexpected events. Things might not go to plan. So that's something we have to be very aware of, particularly as the moon is square Pluto. Things are very intense and confused, because today Venus is making a square with Neptune. So when Venus is making a square with Neptune, there's plenty of scope for not seeing the picture clearly. And this is particularly the case when it comes to relationships and money. So if you're mixing with people, don't make assumptions about who they are. Don't make assumptions about what signals they're giving. Don't play emotional mind games with yourself. Don't have fantasies about someone, because there's a good chance that these fantasies are just that, fantasies, and they say nothing about reality. So be careful of that. That's probably the main theme. Mercury is on the Saturn Kronos midpoint. So some people are going to be really obnoxious in the way they speak and communicate. They're going to pretend to be authority figures. They're going to pretend to know things. They're going to perhaps even pretend to have the authority of the state on their side. So, when people tell you to do things, when they invoke laws at you, when they tell you you've got it wrong, okay, they might be right, but consider the possibility that they're just being obnoxious and arrogant. So I'm now going to look at the 12 signs and look at my forecast for the 12 signs for today. Aries, 3 stars. The world is changing and you know it. Fixed plans are only for the naive. Taurus, 3 stars. Relationships want to take up a lot of your time, but your karma says otherwise. Gemini, 4 stars. You have a sense of authority, a sense of right and wrong. Perhaps you're not your usual self. And that's the reason I'm saying that, is because Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is on the Saturn Kronos midpoint. Cancer, 3 stars. You're taking things seriously, even the business of having fun. Leo, 2 stars. Home and family have their own emotionality and intensity. Do you really want to bother with it? Virgo, 3 stars. Every word needs to be weighed. A joke could become an international incident. Libra, 2 stars. Money matters, even a few pence or cents. Lies can turn into truth in the blink of an eye. Scorpio, 3 stars. You're starting to find your feet, but the first steps could be complicated. Sagittarius, 3 stars. Other people think they know best. You yourself need to bide your time. Capricorn, 3 stars. There is something you really want, but can you afford the price? Aquarius, 5 stars. You have a clear sense of purpose, which can move you to the next level. And finally, Pisces, 2 stars. You know how to distort and confuse the situation, but certain individuals know you better than you know yourself. Sorry, it seems that recently I've been a bit down on Pisceans, but don't worry, it won't continue. Now, finally, I'm going to look at the I Ching. I did an I Ching for today, asking the question, what is Thursday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And it's not a very interesting day, but it's a stable day. First hexagram is 37, the family. So in the first instance, you need to think about your family. You need to think about your role in the family. And it's a time when dealing with family members, and indeed your group, the people you normally hang out with, you can be a very trustworthy guiding figure. And the family changes to hexagram 52, which is the mountain. In other words, you are stability. You're the one that can stabilize the situation. Indeed, the situation might not need stabilizing, but you're the rock on which everything is going to be founded and supported. So we can all have a relaxing and stable day, provided we stay strong. Anyway, that is all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.